Greetings and welcome to Star Trek Discovery Pod, a sometimes funny, trying to be smart podcast covering all things new and classic Trek. What is a star date? I'm your captain, Mariah Gossett. With me on the view screen, we have
Clyde Haynes. Risk. It's what we're here for.
And you have Paul Tatachet, the best of us.
Hey, it's Mike Moody Garcia. I've been out to space for 3,000 years, and I've come back a horrible, horrible person, apparently. That's what happens when you go out into space forever. So that's me.
you become, a capitalist.
Oh.
Yes. Tonight we
This
are
is gonna be
talking
a fun
about
show.
the Sehlat Who Ate Its Tail, which was directed by Valerie Weiss, written by David Reed and Bill Wolkoff. But before we dive into discussing the Kirkiest of Kirk episode we're going to have this season, just a couple of reminders. Paul, where can people find resources to share the show with their friends who maybe are just getting into Star Trek?
Hey, if you want to subscribe to our podcast, you can do so on Apple, Spotify, or YouTube. All links are at StarTrekPod.co. And please consider joining our Patreon and to get access to our amazing Slack community.
Yeah, I saw Clyde hanging out in one of the watch-alongs this week. I think, Mike, were you in a watch-along this week too? Or I saw you in the Slack, maybe? No? Okay. No. Just Clyde.
All right, probably tomorrow, though. I want to do the Enterprise nights. I know they have a night where they do an
I think I'm going back to that. They invited, because we were talking about in the Slack last week, and they were like, "Why? We still do them." And I was like, "All right, I'm coming back."
Love it, because I've always felt that you had faith of the heart, Clyde.
I mean, every once in
a long road.
It's been a long road.
Getting from there to here. Sorry.
There you go.
No musical
apologies.
Interlude. Speaking of
blame it on Mike. Enough Stargate. I feel like I need to see some Trip. I haven't seen Trip in a while, so
you gotta see some Trip. Clyde, how can people, if they want to get our attention in the chat this evening, if they're hanging out with us live on YouTube, how should they do so?
Well, I think they should reach into a big box, pull out a bunch of stuff from the 80s, including a phone, like one of the ones with a cord you plug into the wall, because it cannot be jammed. And then you just dial the round thing. You just dial our number, and we'll pick up and answer your phone calls live on the show. No, seriously, type capital P, capital O, capital D, capital Pod into the chat, and we'll take a look at your musings, your thought, your queries, your questions, your comments, and possibly answer them live right here in real time. No jamming.
Real time.
Jamming. Okay, I think it is time for us to dive in and discussing this week's episode. I feel like I see a new video. There's new things. There's new assets in the feed.
Feel free to use them.
I'm excited to see where the
time comes.
Yeah. Excellent. Okay, well, first, I think it's time for a classic. Hot breaks. It's time for a hot break. Mike, what did you think of this episode?
Okay, this episode, going into it, I was hyped. I was hyped for this episode, and it didn't disappoint. I love Kirk. I love Paul Wesley. I love Paul Wesley's Kirk. Those are two things that are the same. And I thought Paul Wesley's Kirk finally was given a great showcase here, came into focus. He wasn't like the full swagger legend version we all know, but something like more raw. And this episode as a whole, while being a great showcase for him, I'm already a stan for him. As a whole, it was so good. It was action driven. It was character rich. It was funny as hell. And it's doing that thing that Strange New Worlds does better than almost any Star Trek show before it. It takes familiar tropes, ideas, characters we know as fans, and instead of just retelling or remixing old stories, it finds new angles, new layers, new depths to these characters and these tropes and the stakes that we're familiar with, and just wring some really new drama and just compelling stuff out of them. So I thought this was a banger, one of my favorite episodes, definitely better than last week's episode. And the reveal at the end about the humans is really surprising, and I thought it led into a really, really great scene with the two captains talking about growing as a captain and discovering that how important empathy is on the job. I thought that was a great message. All in all, 9 out of 10, I'd say.
Awesome. Paul, I saw you nodding and then also being surprised. So I feel like we'll jump to you. What's your hot freak?
I feel like, not to jump franchises, but this reminds me of like Harry Potter's like jelly beans, where like it has a whole bunch of stuff. It could be any flavors. And like I felt like it had a lot of great stuff, and there are a few things that I go like, oh, that wasn't tasty. So like I'm a little more mixed about it. Like it's once again like, what production value? My God. My God. Like I feel like, how much money are they spending? Because it is, everything is looking so hot. It's looking so hot that it makes me overlook things sometimes. And so like I watched it the second time today, and I was like, oh, here are things that anyway, it doesn't matter. Like I think it was a good enough episode. I feel like there are some really neat highlights. There are things where I go like, but like I'm sure we'll discuss that.
Yeah. I mean, I'm interested for us to dig into some holes. And I had recently looked up the budget for this show because I watched the Alien Earth show this week, which is spending, if you think this show looks expensive, and if y'all haven't checked out Alien Earth, holy cannoli.
Is it really?
It's
great.
Impressive. But yeah, they spent about 10 million an episode for Strange New Worlds. Which I'm impressed with how much they get done with that budget frame, actually. Personally, since it's like a lot of
Alien Earth is double that, isn't it?
It's 20 episodes.
Yeah, Alien Earth. The Alien Earth is $250 million for the season.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
Jeez.
Yeah.
They're just doubling down on that like known IP.
Yeah. But Clyde, I digress. What was your hot freak?
This is hard for me to say, but
Paul Wesley's gonna be he's your boy now. I can tell. You're about to show that.
Did he grow on you? Did he grow on you?
He's showing it.
He
jumping
off.
Yes!
Grew on me a little bit. Yeah.
Oh no! I
tough.
thought your take was going to be, this sucked, and I'm sorry, Mike, but
no.
So yeah.
No, I enjoyed it. I really did. And when I started to really look at Paul Wesley's Kirk as this pre-swag Kirk, this learning swag Kirk, and this I'm bored, I just need action to think about where he gets to, this more mature, evolved Kirk. I kind of look back and I was like, I want to hate him. I really, really want to hate him, but I don't. And I actually appreciate it. And I like where it's going so much so that I found myself actually thinking, if they did a spinoff of early TOS, I would gladly watch it. Like, that was a moment where I was just like, really? I would watch this plain hot dog eating fool in a whole show, and I would.
By myself now. I'm all by myself. I feel.
So,
I like probably fall somewhere between everyone here. Like I found the episode to be more interesting than last week. I'm glad tonally we stayed in the same place. I think we've had a bit of a whiplash going between like silly and intense, and this felt like a natural arc from last episode, without really like taking into account some of the actions of last episode, which is the only like criticism I have. Was like, are we still not going to talk about the weird thing that's like attached to this ship that's just like in the system? But I'm assuming that's going to come back around. But I agree with Clyde that this felt like a chemistry test for this crew. It was also a smart budgeting choice as a producer. You're using all the same Enterprise sets, which was a little confusing. I thought visually, they could have done a little bit more to differentiate between the two ships.
Just even color, like one,
just like change the
blue,
uplighting.
one green. Yeah.
Like change the uplighting. It would have been really easy. That's like a very minor criticism, but I think like I found this to be what I needed to see from Paul Wesley to understand the evolution of a young Kirk. And I really enjoyed the relationships that we saw between Kirk and this like core crew. And yeah, I enjoyed it overall. I think to me the B plot felt a little flat for me, in many ways. But
What are
that's
you considering the B plot? Which one's the B plot to you?
the stuff happening on the Enterprise. Like like the
putting
runaround with
poo in the tentacles.
yeah,
Plot,
putting
that
poo
one?
in the tentacles. Yeah. Well, and like I love Pelia and I want more of her, but I think to me, because this episode was very like ramped up, the comedic beats from Pelia felt a little like a big break
Outplaced.
in
Yep.
in the progression. And I think it could have been edited to balance that pacing a little bit better. I'm like, just stay with the comedy beat for a little bit longer and then transition using like Kirk and Scotty. There's like ways to use the characters that have that comedic tension already, like Kirk and Scotty, I think, with the scenes with Pelia, so that we're kind of like using the comedic beats to continue the forward momentum.
That's fair. I want to touch on your earlier comment about the was it the Farragut that Kirk was on?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Okay, that the Farragut, like the bridge looking exactly like the Enterprise bridge.
Yeah.
I think maybe that was on purpose because the show wanted to show us that iconography of Kirk, Paul Wesley's Kirk on
The
a
Enterprise,
classic,
essentially.
now
Yeah.
classic Enterprise style
Mhm.
bridge. And I mean, listening to you guys, especially you, Clyde, I think the plan that they had here worked, right? This is obviously designed to center Paul Wesley's Kirk. It feels like a soft pilot, like they're testing the waters for that rumored Star Trek Year One series with him captaining the Enterprise for the first time with Spock and this crew, a prequel, right? And it sounds like, they really threw a strike with this, even though, some of you are mentioning some issues with the episode, which are totally fair. It sounds like really the big pitch was, hey, do you like this guy with this crew in these type of stakes? And we did, right? So success.
Well, I want to ask that question. Like, so when you looked up and saw that you've got Kirk, Spock, Uhura, Scotty, Chapel all together, did you feel something? Like, what was that? How did that work for you?
I felt like I could have just stayed there for the next episode, but I was already primed for it because I love this cast and I like Wesley with him.
Yeah. I mean, I think I was like, oh, I'm still really attached to this crew's chemistry, sans Kirk for now. But I can see how Kirk can come in, and because they're setting up these like TOS relationships, to me, how well they all function in the original series makes more and more sense. You know what I mean? Like we're progressing towards what I think is that like balanced team chemistry that they have. Like, if you grab Bones and Sulu, we're there, but I like, yeah, I was just like, I have unfinished business with the current crew, so I'm not like ready to jump to ship. But I like I said earlier, it definitely felt like their version of like when Pike came into Discovery and they're like, let's see if people like this, and I think this is let's see if people like this.
Mm-hmm.
But also, who knows what Paramount? I'm also like very concerned with Paramount and what's going to happen with our Trek over the next.
Yeah, I'm
like
torrenting this show from now on. All torrents all the time.
Like I'm gonna buy like DVD. I don't know. Like, we'll just like eventually. I'm like they might just take it off the streaming service altogether. I'm like, buy your DVDs now and like torrent your stuff, because like they just spent like a horrendous amount of money getting the rights to do all the MMA fights for this next like season, like $9 billion, like an insane amount of money. And so I'm like, if they're throwing around money to the audience that I think they're throwing around money towards, and like there's continuing to make like all the Yellowstone bullshit and, not greenlight really fun, smart comedy pilots from indigenous creators. I'm just gonna get off my soapbox now. But
Mariah,
yeah,
are you saying that MMA fighter, like people who watch MMA, aren't watching Trek? Is that what you're saying?
I would be very interested to know what that Venn diagram looks like.
Let's exist in this for a minute, because it's a conversation I think a lot of Trek fans are having right now. Is we love Star Trek. We love that we're in a new, golden era or whatever of Star Trek, thanks to Paramount and Paramount Plus bringing back the franchise in such a big, bold way.
Mm-hmm.
That's why we have this podcast, right? But recent events, right? Paramount is obviously has kowtowing to an administration that purports flies in the face of the values of everything we as Trek fans or as humans try to live our lives by, and it's terrible. I don't want to get too political, but yeah, there is definitely a tension there, right? We want to watch our Star Trek, but also it's being
I don't
brought
love
to us
giving
by
my money. Yeah, I don't love giving them my money every month. You know?
To a big evil corporation that is kowtowing to anti-democratic oligarchs.
Fascists.
Fascism. There it is. Yeah.
Fascism.
Well, my hot Paul is like.
Oh, we have a video for that. Hang on.
Hot freaks! Hot freaks!
We have a hot Paul.
So, is it David Ellison? He's the head of Skydance, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, he cut his teeth with Star Trek, right? This is what Star Trek got him his thing. So, like, I have to assume that he is a Star Trek fan. So, I expect that Star Trek will still have in Paramount Plus. It's still, for all of it, it still brings in a lot of money. So, so in that way, I think the other aspect, you have to make your choices as far as like what you do with your resources and your policy. But I think there'll continue to be Star Trek. I hope, I think there was the lull happened when we had after blah blah blah. What's the word? Enterprise, right? Enterprise had the lull before. I think there's still money to be had with Star Trek right now. So I know that they're working on a few things, like a Star Trek sitcom, for example. So there are things in the work still. As I understand it, they'll have to pitch to see what the new hierarchy wants. But
right.
So I don't know.
I know. I still have some hope because I know Tawny Newsome and Justin Simeon's show. I haven't heard it being shelved yet, so it's all of that stuff still gives me hope. And to bring it back to this episode, it is kind of an interesting, not to jump all the way to the end, but it is an interesting discussion to think about how they set up. I thought it was a really interesting perspective that Kirk essentially was like, I have guilt because these were 7,000 humans. And so it's what value do you place on life? And if that life is not of your own species, how are you thinking about that? And I thought that
one of those jelly beans. It's a jelly bean.
It was a big question to dump at the very end of the episode.
For me, I thought if they had just left it as undisclosed space alien super killer in a whale ship, I've been totally fine with it. But they try to add this other thing, and I understand why they added it. At the same time, I was going oh, this is not integrated in the adventure that I was watching for the last 40.
I wish there had been more hints that they were this could have been it would have been interesting to be oh, there's a transmission and it's in English, it's in Federation, English or whatever,
If the mystery was more there.
Yeah.
There wasn't really much of a mystery of who this was going to be. I mean, I don't know, but when it was revealed, I do like that we didn't get any hints that they were humans because it put us in Kirk's shoes, right? They're the bad guys. We want to kill them. But that message was really clear.
But to Mariah's point, what if they were 7,000 Vulcans? Would Kirk feel bad? If there's 7,000 Cardassians, would he feel bad? Is it the fact that they said humans made it seem so? It's not ethnocentric.
That led to that bigger conversation about it doesn't matter if they're humans or not. You always should have empathy for the
your
person
enemies.
on the other side.
Yeah. And I think I'll say for me, I thought it lacked a little bit of tension. It just didn't drop for me because to me, true tension around this topic makes the choice that you do harder, right? So we've seen Star Trek decide, do I interfere based on a value for another species? That's one thing where I can feel the tension. At the end of the day, you have, like, I don't care what race they are, who they were trying to kill you. They were destroying planets, right? So you were trying to escape. That took away the tension of what race they are, because ultimately I have to survive, right? So I think that was the only thing that got me. Was I was like, I was like, it's an interesting question, but I felt like it could have been done in a more nuanced way that would have really had me like,
And let's be clear, Kirk was just trying to shoot favors. Spock's the one who goes, let's blow the ship up. It was that Vulcan, that human disrespecting Vulcan that did it.
It's like, well, it's illogical if we don't fucking kill them all.
That's right.
But I think there's a lot of interesting, like, if I want to go like really deep literary analysis on the episode, it's interesting to have like Pelia talking about like, oh, I'm glad I survived the 80s, and like I'm thinking about like Cold War era stuff, and like the like economic boom that sort of came after that, and then you have like literally them all using the quote "destroyer of worlds," which a quote made famous by Oppenheimer after he assembles the atomic bomb, which obviously was a huge historical moment in the.
There's a big movie about that.
They should,
they should.
I've heard that.
What would you call it though?
Like boom,
Oppenheimer.
Oppenheimer.
Boom, boom.
Boom, boom.
But it's interesting because like, so the full quote comes from like Hinduism, which is I wrote it down somewhere, but now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds, and then it's used to express immense power and potential destruction unleashed by the bomb. Lord Shiva is also known as the destroyer in Hinduism, but Shiva's destruction, according to a very like basic, I'm not saying I'm any kind of expert on Hinduism or religion, but on the basics, Shiva's destruction is not arbitrary, though. It's supposed to be a necessary part of the cosmic process of creation and recreation, renewal and removal of imperfections, in the same way that like we live and then we die, we become food for the ground, and then it becomes plant, like there's a cycle of life. And so that's supposed to be what it represents.
Like almost like a circle of one, like a circle.
A circle storytelling, if anyone's watched that video. Everyone's watched that video who writes for television. But I was going somewhere with this, but it's interesting here where it's essentially like these folks were scavengers and they were destroying things, but were they actually creating life? Were they creating things that were of renewal and things that were making society better? So it's like an interesting setup that they're like, these were the bad guys because they weren't contributing to society, but in fact, they were the people on Earth who thought there was potential for life outside of here. And how do we keep humanity moving forward? So it's interesting that you took the brightest minds and then somehow via isolation, perhaps, lack of possibility of diversity, a lack of interactions with other people or species, this insular mind thought process that creates this like need to destroy without a need to collaborate.
Well, like an echo chamber of ideas that become
like you could say bubbles that maybe you access on a tiny computer that's in your pocket,
And the defining characteristic of the villains here that everyone kept repeating was that they consume. They're full of greed. They consume and destroy, and they add to they just consume. And so somewhere along the line, these people who were full of hope and I guess progressive scientific minds, somewhere along the line, a switch was flipped, a decision was made to pursue
descendants,
to pursue selfish interest and greed, and that led to them being okay with killing a planet of millions of people, which is entirely the opposite of what we see in Star Trek, which is the Federation. You lead with empathy, right? And this episode, thinking about the villains a little bit, kind of reminds me of the second season of Andor a little bit, where the fascistic empire goes into this planet and just plunders their natural resource without giving a damn about anybody, because hey, that's what fascists do. What was left out of this episode is how the descendants of this crew became this way, which I wonder if we'll ever go back to that.
I would be interested if they did it as like a comic book series. I feel like it'd be kind of interesting to watch that story unfold in that way. But
let's just be clear. Like, you know, I'm not saying these guys aren't bad guys, but all they did was they destroyed an uninhabited planet for their resources, and they were headed what we suspect towards an inhabited, you know.
But there's no confirmation that they were going to destroy that
or even that they were going there, like necessarily. They just happened to be in that direction.
So but we also heard that there was a lot of stories about them in the past about destroying.
Not just that.
Lot of rumors about other things, and we just jumped.
The evidence was there. They had tons of ships inside of their, you know.
Like I said, I'm not saying like, you know, but like we jumped to the point where they are like planet killers, and maybe they are. I'm like one of the things that I had a problem with this episode was like power creep. Like, you know, like here's a Death Star level laser from a ship, you know, boom, and it just obliterates the ship, a planet like really quick, and then all of a sudden, like, oh, here are 3 photon torpedoes. Boom, it's gone. Death Star, baby.
Yeah, if they found the Death Star port in its uvula, like of the ship.
That's right. Exactly. So it's like, okay,
it got deep throated.
Little things like, oh, here's the Enterprise, and look, Pelia has like enough copper wire to run the course of across the Enterprise and the bridge.
Because I know she was like stripping Enterprise of copper wire, but I really thought she was going to go get walkie-talkies. Because when I'm like, the 80s, when I was a kid, walkie-talkies.
Yeah. Sure. I thought that would have been
that one.
That'd been good, but like, you know, the phone actually has a good look to it. It's a good trailer moment. I saw in the trailer, like, ooh, I wonder what happens there.
The visual of a rotary phone on the Enterprise is, you can't beat it.
Yeah, and then using like a video game joystick to power the thrusters, also hilarious.
All great. It's just the fact that like there are these like little skips of like, and we have all this wire necessary, and we hit like, you know, and here's a super laser, and here's a ship that like, you know, can eat an Enterprise, but like three torpedoes in the right, you know, the exhaust vent explodes it. Like it's just so like I said, grab bag of stuff. Like some like all the Paul Wesley stuff that you guys mentioned. I think I probably am the least bought in by that. Like I said last time in the episode two episodes ago, where I go like, this is probably, I'm not a Paul Wesley convert yet, but I'm gonna give him a chance. And it moves forward. It definitely moves forward. When you said, you know, like here's the core crew together, I go like, they got a long way to go, because like Scotty's a real punk in a way that is like really like unhelpful.
But like, I love it. I love how angsty he is.
100%. Like I'm just saying, like, you know, I don't, you know, for all of it, I'm not loving. There was one moment that I thought was amazing, where basically everyone was giving their their opinion as per tradition or culture on Pike's Bridge.
Yeah.
And like, you know, and Kirk just says, shut up, I don't need your opinion. Or my favorite to Uhura, I understand the specifics of the situation, girl.
So
and so I thought he was gonna go, oh, this is not a democracy, this is, I'm the captain, I'm going to make a choice, much like Kirk often does, like in TOS. And I thought they were going to go, oh, here is a different leadership style that is not Strange New Worlds, that is legitimately valid, almost the same way that Jellicoe had it in TNG, where like, you know, no one liked him, but like he got the job done. And so anyway, but I can see how it can move. I just thought, anyway, you go, Clyde.
So I'll say this. So when I asked the question, one of the reasons why I asked the question is because, if I'm completely honest, the first time I watched it, I didn't even notice. Like it just didn't speak to me. And then on kind of rewatch, I was like, oh, we have the core kind of members of the TOS
Sure.
cast on the bridge all together, and that's when I kind of thought one of my favorite TOS episodes is, what is it? It's the Beyond
Spock's brain.
Terror. No, it's
Spock's
the
brain.
Balance of Terror. That's what it is. Balance of Terror.
Yep, that's right.
And one of the things I love about Balance of Terror is that I think it feels like Trek to me, in that you've got this moment where you've got this strong, swaggy Kirk, but he brings in Spock and Bones to help him figure out what to do next. Like there's this moment there, and that always feels like, that is, Picard's ready room. It's Janeway talking to Chakotay and Seven of Nine and the whole bridge crew. Like that's Trek to me. So when I saw this and kind of saw him like, I don't need you, I don't, and even Spock going in, those moments felt like, what am I seeing? And that's where I kind of got interested. Like maybe I want to watch this a little bit more. Now I'm not fully bought in, but I am trying.
You have a bunch of hot dogs with no condiments.
Yes, but I think the idea of seeing where we are and this Kirk that I don't think is a strong leader, and I'm trying to figure out the balance between Spock, who feels more like a mentor, to where we get to, and you have this Kirk, Spock, Bones relationship where they feel like collaborators. I'm curious how we get from point A to point B. Now, that doesn't mean I'm like, give it to me now, but I'm like, I would tune into that and see if you can convince me to stay.
Yeah, like right now, Spock feels more seasoned as a leader to me than Kirk. And I go like, that does not feel like the dynamic I'm expecting from this. So
right with you, Paul. I'm right with you.
Yeah.
But
I think
Kirk and Spock are supposed to be very, very different. That's why they complement each other so much. And like the Kirk we're seeing here, I mean, even though he did get, pretty badass in the end, it was all about him stepping into command really in a big way for the first time, and really confronting what it means to be a captain, and trying to reconcile, not just the badass instinct-driven Kirk that he is, but the harder stuff, the weight of responsibility, the need for empathy, the how to lead a team under unbelievable pressure when lives, maybe millions of lives, are on the line, and those lives rest on what you're going to do. I thought all that was displayed really well on screen, and it's something that we've never really gotten from Kirk, where he's really doubting himself and is put into the fire for the first time, and we get a complex characterization of that.
And I think it's a good reminder that Kirk ends up becoming the youngest captain to ever. I can't remember if it's just helm the Enterprise or period.
In Starfleet.
Correct. So it's like to see, I think, Spock, who is older because also Vulcan. To me, it makes sense that I think Spock is more confident in his decision-making skills, because that's also just who Spock is. But I enjoyed seeing the beginnings of that relationship that they have in this episode in particular, when Spock's like, I think he needs someone who's like a very straight sounding board in this moment. And so when they have that moment in the ready room, I thought that was like a nice glimpse into that part of their relationship.
I think, not to do more bashing. It's not meant to be bashing. It just only sounds that way, Mike. But like right now, like when I think of Star Trek, TOS and on, with Kirk and Spock, like I see them as equals. Like Spock is amazing. He's a super genius, blah blah. And you know what? Kirk is also amazing. Like he is like the guy. And in this particular iteration right now, I don't see Paul Wesley's Kirk's amazing yet. I'm not saying it can't happen.
No. I'm saying yes. I'm not saying yet. I'm agreeing with you, Paul.
Yes. And I hope that there's a time when that the transitions happen. But right now, if I were to be an admiral, I would give Spock the the captain's chair, not Paul Wesley. I don't see that magical potential that will eventually turn into Kirk.
That makes sense. The potential, I think, is there, and I think we did see it in this episode. And what you got to remember about Spock is that he has no ego, so he knew that his place there was to help inspire the captain, because, like Uhura kept mentioning in this episode, there's something about this guy, and he has it, and he saved my life before just by being so inspiring. So I know he can get there.
I guess
and
so far in the series, in the three seasons, where has he been amazing to you? That's a question I'm asking. Like, I'm not
definitely not in his hot dog choices. That's for sure.
Thank you, Clyde. Thank you.
Speaking of the hot dog choices, I mean, that entire episode when he was caught in back in time with Lon, he was what we see. The way we've seen this Kirk be amazing is on a one-to-one interpersonal basis with other characters and inspiring them. We've seen that on a micro level. And I think the show is just cooking him to where he can do that on a much bigger level. So that's the story, right? And that's what's great about this show. Like I said earlier, like, it's giving us new aspects of these characters and tropes that we know, but telling new stories with them, showing us, especially with Kirk, showing us who they were before. Like, at the beginning of this episode, he had all those brash instincts, and he wanted that captain's chair. You could feel it, right? But he has to go through some shit to get there. And I think for a prequel, that's the kind of like weighty, dramatic stuff you want to play in, right? You don't want him just to be, the inspiring superhero at the start.
I also think I was just gonna say, I've been trying to think a lot about I've been recommending Strange New Worlds to a lot of my friends lately who are like, oh, I've never watched Star Trek before. And I think I often have been thinking about, specifically with this Kirk and this version of all of these characters, right, are the modern day version of this. Because I think if you put a Shatner style, like, I'm not talking about like the acting style, but just like the tropes of what Kirk was in TOS in modern day television, people aren't going to like that straight off the bat. Like, I think the womanizing, the brash, the ego, like, I think a lot of that is not as palatable to audiences now as it was then. And I think this show is being smart in taking someone who has like other beloved franchises attached to his name, putting him in something very, very different. And letting, I think, all of these characters exist in a much more like modern take of their tropes.
I'll add, I think what's how I'm struggling with is, no matter how much I try, I am being impacted by the Kelvin verse dynamic between Spock and Kirk. Because it's so, Paul, you talk about equals. What we see in the Kelvin verse interaction between Spock and Kirk is we see two people at the very early moments of their career come in as the best of the best very differently, right? Who don't always get along, but they're both geniuses in their own right. They're badasses. And then they come together and we see them work through it where they start to respect each other. That has left a mark on me.
Indelible.
I think indelible, far greater than I thought. And so when I see this, it's just,
I feel that.
The Pine Quinto combination was very powerful.
And I didn't expect it. And when you say it, I'm like, really? But when you look at it, I'm just like, dang, that was good.
But that was in the context of like this really, really loud, firecracker of a movie. You know what I mean? It was all in that 2 hours. Yeah, and this is TV. They gotta stretch it out. They gotta tell deeper stories. They gotta tell longer stories. So it makes sense. But yeah, you're right. It does. That dynamic does have an imposing shadow on what's going on in this show for sure.
I think there are people who want to see behind the curtain and see, like, how the sausage is made. And I think there are some people who just want the hot dog. You know, like not to keep on going back to food and specifically this, but we are talking about Kirk. And I think like, you know, when I think of Kirk, I go like, do I need to see his origin story? And I go, yes, I do. I'm a person who likes to see like, you know, people's backstories. Some people just want to see James Bond be James Bond. You know, some people just like, and I think Kirk oftentimes falls into that situation where like my favorite Kirk of Paul Wesley's is the show. What was that show that he was on? You know,
Oh, right.
like I go like, oh, he can do it. I know he can give me what
Vampire
I want.
Diaries.
No, no,
Right? No?
the show where, you know, 2
The-
episodes ago.
The show within the show
Oh,
on
the show
Space
within
Time
a show.
Adventure.
Oh,
Hour.
Yeah.
Space Time Adventure.
Space Adventure.
Space, like, and I go like, oh, like you take that. That's that's a height 110. You just take it down 20 to 90. Perfect Kirk there. Like, you know, like for what I need. But you know, it is a very interesting thing.
And I think he would stand out in such a weird way in the universe of these characters now.
But here's the thing, like, and this is where I'm going to go out on a limb, where I go like, you know, you look at Kirk back in TOS, and it's very, you know, of its time, very patriarchal, very all this stuff. And the question I would have is like, is there a modern form of that is palatable today? Because
Yes.
10 years ago, that was Chris Pine. No one goes and Chris Pine is not my Kirk 10, 15 years ago. No one says that. Everyone goes like, oh, that is Kirk. That's the Kirk I know, plus Beastie Boys.
Yeah.
You know, so.
Well, it's because we saw him from the bottom, and then we saw him at school, and then we saw him be like a fool. I mean, I do think from current lens, it's probably a little, I think the womanizing was downplayed in the movie better than it was in TOS, right? Like there's no blonde or green gal of the week. There was blonde and green gals, of course,
yes,
in the movie.
They had a little more agency than they did back in the.
It was like they had their autonomy, right? Like they were part of this.
So Kirk hasn't changed. The women portrayal have changed.
Correct. And so I think in this version, where's the Mariah theory button? Here we go.
This button now.
Yo, Mariah got a theory. Her name's not Jerry. Her name is Mariah. Mariah got a theory. Sucker.
That is
incredible.
Too good. Well done. No notes.
Incredible.
Zero.
I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Okay, so here's my theory: is that we're setting up to watch this Kirk. If we're gonna get a reboot of the original series, that's where we're going.
Yeah.
A year one. That's where we're going. We're gonna see this Kirk get his heart broken, and it will be unrepairable. And he's gonna put all of that into hooking up, and we're gonna have sympathy for this Kirk because we're gonna be like,
bonding move.
Yes, he's heartbroken. He's lost his love in some way. This is the death of Lon, unfortunately, I think, at some point.
A lot of people are not going to make it.
And a lot of people.
Shut your mouth. Don't you say that. Do not do that.
We build sympathy for the womanizer Kirk.
Yeah, no, like I mean,
hell yeah.
I think like, you know, I think there's a way to do it all. I just think, you know, it just has to be done with nuance. I think, you know, people, how should I say it in the best way? People are very good at justifying shitty behavior of all sorts.
Totally.
So it's
present society at large.
Right. Like, so like and you know, and I get it.
A pedophile is our president. Sorry, I digress.
And the network we watch Star Trek on just paid him millions of dollars. So,
you know,
or is it billions?
Fine.
I don't know.
I don't. I can't think about it too much. I get sad. Okay.
Yes, of course.
But you know, but I think like for going back to this episode, I think when I was watching before the they're humans, I go like, oh, this is a good episode of the week. This is what an episode of the week needs to feel like. And because like for all of it, as much as I complain about like the copper wire and the Death Star, you know, I didn't get all that until the second watch. Like I was along the ride for the whole thing until they did the ethics lecture at the end, and I was like, I'm all for an ethics lecture. It's just, but you need to seed it in. You can't just pop it into, at the very end for me. You have to like.
Yeah, I don't. It was like, it's interesting because I don't know if they saw the seeding in as like when he is having his moment about how he originally wanted to put the crew on the planet, and that's like the beginning of him having this like. But to me, that's more of like a crisis of ego and
Confidence.
leadership. Yeah,
but
rather
but
than like an ethics.
even then, like that logic is so flawed. Like, we would have beamed down, and then this like Death Star laser would have blown up the planet. It'd be all my fault. That's not your fault.
No, it would have been his fault if his crew was down there.
It would have been. It would have been his
First of all, like that made no sense because he said it, and then 5 seconds after that, the planet blew up. Like they wouldn't even have time to make their way to the train.
I think the point there was that he was just spiraling. Like taking everything on, even though it was uncalled for. Yeah.
I think to Mariah's point, if we're really having an ethics moment and you wanted to see it, again, TNG did this great thing where they would have those moments in the middle and the second, third, where now you have to make a decision based on that. So when I look at this, I go, if they had found out that there were humans earlier, and now they've got to make a decision, like, do we kill them to escape or do we look for another solution? That would have hit home with me a little bit better. Paul, to your point, at the end, I was like, man, you got to get out of there. Like you toss that in the last 3 minutes.
Yeah, we never.
That's a really good point. Yeah,
we never actually got the choice to make an ethical choice. Like it was just,
having this Kirk going to this crisis of confidence, but also grappling with that would have been really meaty. Yeah.
Like, what was I gonna say? Like, do you guys ever watch like the old movies like Psycho, for example? When's the last time you saw Psycho? So
a long time ago,
a couple years ago.
Like you find out that the mom is blah blah blah, but then there's a half-hour soliloquy about
and
that's
stops the movie cold in its tracks. Yeah,
before the end.
Very Moby Dick.
And so I was like, here's this like soliloquy of like, oh, humans, they're important. Empathy is important. Yeah, I go like, you took all. I already got what I needed. I got the pew pews. Like you spent all your pew pew money on this. Like you got nothing now.
So I was giving you your vegetables, man.
Yeah,
well,
I think
that brings up. Go ahead, Mariah. Go ahead.
I was like, I think if when that one like soldier, for lack of a better term, didn't shoot at Pike, and there was a moment, like I think that's what they were trying to bring in that moment. But I think if there had been the reveal and then communicated out, and now you have to come up with a solution for how, and like either that, it's like you come up with a way to have diplomacy be an option, or they don't give you the opportunity for diplomacy to be an option. You know what I mean? It's like you find out who they are, fully who they are.
Yeah, like at 2/3, you capture one of them. They tell you like, this is who we are, blah blah blah. You're nothing to us. Like we're human. Like you're nothing.
You're the scum of the earth. Great,
right.
We get it.
And then they're flying in like, oh my god, they're aiming for the Enterprise. Like you know where they did this really well? Season 2, episode 1. Season 2, episode 1, like Spock has to shoot on the ship, and he's afraid he's gonna have to kill Chapel, and Mbenga. But you see the torment on his like, I need to do this, and I don't want to do this. It's and like you could have done something like that here. I'm not saying to do that, but like Clyde.
I was gonna say I'll add 2 things that kind of separately, but one, that idea of he didn't shoot Pike, it did not land for me. And the reason why it didn't land is because it was Pike. Because Pike is invincible. We know when Pike dies.
Plot armor, baby. Plot army.
So for me, that was just like, I couldn't even grasp the idea of why didn't they shoot it? Because he was never in danger. He was never in any real danger. Yeah. We knew that Pike was gonna live. Like he has to, unless you're gonna completely go off canon. That was gonna happen. The other thing I think about this is, Paul, to your point, you're having me rethink if we're looking at this with the wrong lens, because there is a commerce aspect to it. We're looking at this from the standpoint of, this is Trek, and Trek has meta meaning, and Trek is talking about certain things. And so maybe this discussion sometimes, but this idea of having a conversation about ethics and what do you do, like that's what we're used to. And I think for those of us who follow Trek for a long time, you want that. You want to be challenged that way. But in 2025, sometimes it is about the pews. It is about the set design. It is about the action, and trying to wonder, are they looking for and going, this is an action series. This is like, when I watch Fast and the Furious, I'm not thinking about car safety and whether you're wearing seatbelts and the greater discussion on vehicle commerce or anything like that. I'm thinking blow stuff up,
physics.
jump stuff.
Yeah. We don't even think about physics.
They're
Don't even think about
fast and
physics.
So furious.
And so I guess
you could say
my
too
question,
fast, too furious.
That's right. Too fast, too furious.
I guess my question is, are we looking for something out of this show that they're not trying to give us?
I think, to answer your question, I think that in a condensed format, because like, remember, like old TOS is 22 episodes, 20, at least 22. Like, you have the ability to have purely episodic popcorn episodes. I think when you're stuck with 10, everything needs to be a banger, and I don't think you can have a banger without theme. And part of theme for Star Trek is a discussion.
And I think if they wanted this to be a purely popcorn banger, we wouldn't have had the tag at the end about it's 7,000 humans and all of this stuff. So I think they are thinking about the legacy of this show and what it has communicated in the past, and how almost, it's always been a morality play.
That's what that was about. It was also about putting Kirk and Pike in a room finally in an episode, which, I mean, seeing those two actors work together is great, but also was kind of, I think, laying more groundwork for the Kirk development. Like, I think this realization that we saw at the end of this episode that, he talked about with Pike is going to play into the next time we see him, and maybe even the next time we see him to build that character.
Yeah, no.
But I think, going back to Clyde's question, I saw some folks who were like, I think you wanted a movie, not an episode. Like, I did think the scene with Pike and Kirk was great. And I thought that was, that to me was like a grounding substance. I just think, to our point of like, we've seen them do this before, where it's like you got to breadcrumb it a little bit for it to feel earned. I think it just didn't feel earned to me at the end. Was that like, it felt like you reverse built a sundae, and like the cherry was at the bottom instead of on the top. And so I was like, we gotta.
But what do you call it? Upside down.
There was no whipped cream to get to the cherry, if you will.
No, I get it. Vegetable
We got
blast.
welcome to food talk.
That's right.
Food talk.
But maybe the Astrovore, which I thought was an interesting name, is the precursor of Peanut Hamper.
That is also possible. Is it time for Paul? I think we have a new asset. I feel like is this a Paul theory? Are we ready?
Do you have any theories?
You got to see it.
Yeah.
Got a theory. Got a theory.
Wow. Like that had even less notes than the no notes before. Like there's so few things.
Negative notes.
Negative notes. Like, like my theory is or theory / hope is that this episode, that last bit that plays into the finale.
Yeah.
Like, it
I am. Yeah. Ooh, I was like, do we get a double Mariah theory? We can double down. This is a combo theory, but to build off of the Paul theory into a Mariah theory, is this how we humanize whatever Marie is going to turn into?
Yeah. So
yeah,
it is just interesting, because I go like, oh, you could have cut this out and it would have been fine, unless you're trying to set it up for something.
Yeah.
And so,
if this is the beginning of breadcrumb, great.
Yeah, and so I was like, oh, I can see if it is what I'm expecting, sure. If this is a standalone and it never gets touched again, it is a little weird for me because I feel like for all of it, everyone like this season is still so strong. You know, like it might not
Yes.
always be
Agreed.
to everyone's preference. Like I think season
Yeah.
one, there's still like there's still the episodic feel of it that that I think season 2 and season 3 are kind of missing a little bit. I think they're more serialized in a way. So if you're a season 1 person and you like, I get that, but if you're into the serialized bit with the characters, like this is how you do it, right? You don't set up like oh, here is how you set up the fact that there's a gun in episode 3 and then it gets fired by the kid and kills ooh, what you say in the finale.
Yeah. But yeah, I think this was overall a strong episode. I also enjoyed Captain Varel in her couple of moments, which was played by Zoe Doyle. I thought she was really fun as always.
What has she been in? She looked familiar.
Yeah, I was like, she was enough that she got credit in like a bunch of articles about the episode. So I was like, she's of note, I'm assuming. Repo Man, Man of the Year, The Silence, seen a lot of movies, Doc, Law and Order Toronto, a Canadian hire.
Right.
But I thought she was great.
For 3 lines.
Her 3 lines.
There's a can I highlight a cool comment from Kern?
Yeah.
We'll see if there's any backlash to them showing the U.S. flag on the scavenger ship.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think they were making a pretty
Bold.
big metaphor. Yeah, to be like, yes, U.S. citizens greedy, consuming.
Yeah. Well, what was some of this episode? Some of the imagery and ideas in this episode, was it Star Trek's version of the South Park naked Trump penis episode? Maybe.
We'll see.
We'll see. I mean, this all got written and produced, I think, even prior to the election. Yeah. I'm sure commenting on the general. There is a Law and Order Toronto. P.W. Gregory.
There was a hot freak that
I feel like I need to watch that.
Brought up. It was Nicole. Anyone else feel like they're setting up an Uhura Kirk pairing, or is it just the crazy amount of chemistry they have?
I think they're just 2 hot people with chemistry.
I think
Uhura has chemistry with everyone. They're like yes.
I think they're going to do Uhura. It'll be like Liz Lemon and Jack Donaghy in 30 Rock.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I think they're setting up that type of friendship, camaraderie that's gonna span, decades. But I don't see a romantic pairing.
Yeah, Adrian says Kirk and Uhura are more brother or sister than romantic pairing,
which is like the hottest, as we can agree, but not for this. Paul theory.
I'm not co-signing on any of that, buddy. Nope.
I think Celia is just like an incredibly charismatic actor, and so they do a pretty incredible job. Why not set her up with Spock? He hasn't had enough girlfriends in the show.
Yeah, Spock's the Kirk of this season,
I mean, Spock and Uhura have like a lot of chemistry in the TOS era. So, when they like play little instruments and sing in the cafeteria together, they're hanging.
There's an episode
the Kelvin verse,
in 30 Rock where Tracy Morgan goes and lists all the people that Liz has like hooked up with over the seasons, and it's a lot of people, more than you would think for someone who professes as to being like, oh, I'm just a blah 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 blah. And so like Spock, as just a like I'm just a Vulcan. He's the one who's been going through all the people. Like, he has three really like
watch yourself.
Fiance. I was gonna say fiance, like girlfriend to the point where he abandons logic, and like and La'an, who is Clyde, like soon to be
Just
like
saying.
Paramore,
embarrassing
yeah.
crush.
I think Choopy here did a better job of saying something I wanted to say earlier. Not that one. Was that she definitely thought that U.S. consumerism, me first attitudes were
Mhm.
very pointed in this episode that the show was critiquing with the
Yeah.
scavengers.
Totes.
Very true.
Anything else to say about this episode?
I think the highlight was probably the Paul theory. I think the Paul
The Paul
theory.
theory video is pretty great.
It's long winded as I am. Is the negative notes?
Very good.
I will just say I thought the special effects of the ship, their spacesuits, all of that was incredible for what is largely throwaway characters in one episode.
Yeah, like
So,
the space whale ship. Hey, let's make a big
Yum.
space whale. Because they've done ships like that before. I thought it was going to be like that one TOS episode where the planet destroyer that slices things up with its anti-proton beams, blah blah blah. But no, it was just a
It
whale.
was a tentacle monster,
Yeah,
a space tentacle monster. It looked very intimidating. I liked it.
yeah, dude.
It was
I
very.
mean, and I
very
thought
cool.
their spacesuits were actually, I mean, for as
Yeah.
bulky as they were, I
Those
thought they
big
were pretty
chunky
dope.
ass spacesuits. Yeah, those are
like
cool.
with the phaser absorbers.
Oh,
Mhm.
awesome.
It was
They were
cool.
the best of us.
Very, very prototype Borg to be collecting the best parts of different civilizations.
No one mentioned that, but I did have that thought earlier.
Yeah.
I was wondering if we were going to see like a predecessor of Borg, but then it just got thrown
Like
away.
that ship is bigger than a cube.
It would have been
But they
dope
would
if
get
it was
they
like.
would have got it right over time. They
It
would've
would have been
figured
funny
it
if it was like Ferengi on stilts under those suits
Yeah, love it.
because of the greed.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure.
Mhm.
Yeah. Or what the Packlets from Lower Decks.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that too. I was like, these fucking Packlets. Yeah.
Red
Mhm.
alarm, red alarm.
Red alarm. Okay, great. Well, thank you all so much for watching. Thank you for listening. We appreciate y'all. You can find us at StarTrekPod.co. You can follow us at on Instagram at Star Trek Pod. And we'll be back next week to talk about episode 7. Until then, live long and prosper. Bye-bye.
Ciao, Mata.